Hello, folks, and good whatever time of day or even night it is for y'all. We are going to be going over a relatively looked over event, the June 7th through 8th, 1984 tornado outbreak. With our tornado tracks and wind, hail, and tornado reports here on the right, the tornado tracks in red lines. Tornado reports are in red dots. There are some up here in North Dakota. Our green dots, one here also in North Dakota, is hail reports, I think, and then our blue dots are wind reports. I may have gotten the wind and hail colors mixed up. In the bottom left, we see our setup, and that is definitely a very primed atmosphere. But before this setup even came through, we have to talk about the fact this area was affected earlier on the 7th, around the morning hours, morning, afternoon, by a mesoscale convective complex, or as I've abbreviated it here, MCC. You may also see these things called MCSs, mesoscale convective systems. They mean the same thing. MCCs are just a big mass of nearly self sustaining and non frontal big storms that are convective. Just a bunch of big storms that can possibly make tornadoes, usually very heavy rain and hail and all that. Can be pretty dangerous. So with this, you would expect the area to have less energy, right? Well, the problem is, no. It actually caused more energy to be available, weirdly enough, after it cleared everything, allowing daytime heating and all of that jazz. In fact, the area affected was see anywhere from 1,000 joules per kilogram of CAPE, CAPE meaning convective available potential energy, just saying how much energy there is in 1 kilogram of the atmosphere, which granted is a big area as air doesn't weigh a whole lot necessarily. Anywhere from 1,000 joules per kilogram, which is deemed sufficient for supercells, all the way up to 5,000 joules per kilogram, which is considered well more than extreme by the NWS. Around 3,500 to 4,000 is considered extreme. And this event would definitely produce tornadoes. With 46 tornadoes in approximately 13 hours, two of these tornadoes would end up being violent, that meaning F4 and above. This is 1984 after all. In total, this event would tragically cause the deaths of 13 individuals, injure an estimated 300 more, and cause at minimum $40 million in damage. We are going to move right into our notables. Our first one being the north of Brooklyn, Missouri, not New York, to Windham, Iowa F4. I was devastated to find that Windham was not where they make flying pigs, so they definitely need to get on that. But they uh, they have work ahead of them. This tornado had a path of 214 kilometers, which is around 130 miles. It's more than that, actually, a little bit. This tornado caused 3 deaths, at least 67 injuries, and anywhere from 75 to $200 million in damage. From quoting from the source that I found for this tornado, quote, near total destruction occurred along the entire path, end quote, with the towns of Wright and Delta, Iowa, nearly decimated, which from the source is around 90% of both of those towns. On top of all of this, an estimated 100 to 150 barns would be destroyed from this F4. Our second notable is an F3 that went from Albert Lee to west of Allendale, Minnesota, both of these towns being in Minnesota. This tornado had a, albeit still long, but not as impressive, I should say, 23.4 kilometer long track where it would injure 12 people. The Albert Lee Ambulance Service Building would be destroyed. On top of this, 65 homes and 24 other buildings would be affected, that meaning a combination of damaged and destroyed, although I couldn't find specifics on how many of each. And the most notable bit of damage here, as I don't normally include uh, non-violent tornadoes, is that this F3 ripped some homes from their foundations, albeit not by much, but still, just not on the foundation that it's supposed to be on. Given that there are no disputed ratings for this tornado, it is most likely the building quality or the construction as a whole that caused this kind of damage. Most likely, I would assume anchor bolts being non-existent. So just some relatively intense damage for an F3 is all. One of the more underrated F5s to have ever happened in the United States is this notable here. They went from the south of Ridgway, Wisconsin, to the northwest of Dane, Wisconsin. This F5 had an impressive trek of close to 60 kilometers, and it maxed out at around 400 meters wide. This tornado would tragically cause the deaths of 9 individuals, injure 200 more, and cause more than $25 million in damage. There are a ton of notable things about this tornado. Two of them being that one, this is a family member to notable one. A tornado family is caused by the same supercell producing more than one tornado. And this was also a nighttime violent tornado. Some of the only things that could have made this thing worse, if it was rain wrapped, which it was thankfully not, was not able to be illuminated by lightning, which it definitely was, and also it wouldn't be illuminated very well due to it being rain wrapped, which again, it was not. So thankful there. Or if it cut power to tornado sirens, which it actually ended up doing. Uh, in the town of Barneveld, they got no warning, unfortunately, from the sirens. The tornado killed the power to the Barneveld sirens before any sirens could activate. On top of all of this, the Barneveld residents believed that the hills close to the town would protect them from tornadoes. This is something that I have seen time and time and time again, and every single time it has been proven wrong. There's really no correlation between terrain and tornadoes. Just, oh no, a slight incline, I'm ruined. No, the tornadoes are not World War II heavy German tanks, guys. These things are powerful monsters that do not care. They are going to move forward or stationary. They can be stationary too, but they usually move forward. Mother Nature doesn't like rules. So just so some examples of this kind of thing of terrain is the 1953 Waco tornado. Waco is not safe in a valley. There was Burnett's Mound from, I believe, it's a town in Kansas. That town name eludes me right now, unfortunately. And on top of all of this, 90% of the town of Barneveld was just annihilated. The small community is seen right here in our damage photos on the right, and it is truly horrifying. I can only assume that this community was very close knit, as small communities tend to do, and I can also assume that they rebuilt. Small communities tend to either just vacate and move and it become a ghost town, or usually in more modern times rebuild, which again I'm assuming they did. The Barneveld F5 is estimated to have had wind speeds of 300 miles per hour, which I personally may not wholly agree with, as the Fujita scale, the original Fujita scale, is in and of itself an overestimate of wind speeds and everything. And even then, like, oh, for example, like the 2004 Roanoke F4, would be like, oh yeah, wind speeds were from 210 to 240. It's like that's not a specific wind speed. That a lot more can happen. The you increase the wind, you double the wind speed, you quadruple the force, my guy. Got to be more specific. But in any case, I am not going to wholly say that this tornado wasn't an F5. It clearly was, and there are some pretty intense significance. There's some pretty odd significances with this event. Sorry. The first one is that the first notable we went over is actually one of the longest tornado tracks ever documented in the United States. The tri state tornado, if we account it being one tornado, which most sources do, is obviously the longest tornado track in the US, being 352 kilometers. Even if we separate it into its two most likely tornadoes, if we do separate it, one of them is still more than 200 kilometers. And the only two tornadoes that rival tri state in terms of length are this one and the Mayfield EF4 from 2021. It is also notable that the Barneveld F5 is one of only 3 F5s that Wisconsin has ever seen, and to date, the most recent. And I sure as hell hope that it stays that way for all parties involved, as not having an F5 is a very good thing. Some very odd, although very notable characteristics of the Barneveld supercell is that it produced two violent tornadoes, our F4 and our F5. The supercell itself trekked more than 400 kilometers from Missouri into Wisconsin. It had some very, very extreme lightning to it. Both of these last 2 points, by the way, are in a paper or in a PDF that I will link in the description of this video. And the last point is that this supercell most likely interacted with an outflow boundary, which is very complicated and something I'm not really going to go over. Just strange interactions that probably caused the Barneveld F5 to be an F5. So some very interesting quirks here. With that being said, that is all that I have for this video. I hope that you learned something. I certainly did while researching it, and I hope to see you all in the next one. Thank you all so much for watching.